A god of destruction just landed in the My Hero Academia universe. He hasn't thrown a single punch, he hasn't made a single threat, he simply looked at this world, and hasn't decided yet. Every hero, every quirk, every symbol of peace means absolutely nothing to him. Except one boy walked up, sat down in the dirt and said, "Let me make the case." This is the story of the day heroism was put on trial, and the only weapon Izuku Midoriya had was the truth. The call went out at 6 in the morning. By the time the sun was fully up, 43 pro heroes had assembled on the eastern flats outside Musutafu, the wide open stretch of industrial land they used for large-scale engagements, where the buildings were sparse enough that collateral damage could be managed, and the sky was open enough that aerial quirk users had room to breathe. They were not prepared, nobody was pretending they were prepared, but they were here, standing in their ranked formation, and standing was something. Endeavor stood at the front. He'd been briefed in 9 words: unknown entity, god-level threat, unknown origin, stop it. He'd said nothing when he received the briefing. He had simply shown up. That was, in his estimation, the entirety of what being number 1 actually meant. You showed up when the math didn't work in your favor. Hawks was in the air 300 meters up, 47 feathers fanned out in a wide surveillance arc. He'd been watching the entity for 40 minutes from altitude. He had sent exactly one message down to the ground team. "Don't make it angry, I don't think it's angry yet." Nobody had responded to that message. There wasn't much to say. Beerus landed at 9:14 a.m., not with violence, not with drama. He simply stepped out of the sky the way you step off an escalator, one smooth transition from one surface to another, the only difference being that the surface he'd been on was the upper atmosphere, and the one he was stepping onto was packed Earth 300 kilometers below. He looked at the assembled heroes the way you look at a menu at a restaurant you've been to 1,000 times, mildly curious, already a little disappointed. Endeavor stepped forward because Endeavor always stepped forward. It was practically a character flaw. "Endeavor, whatever your intentions are here, this is your one warning. Leave, now." It was genuinely impressive, objectively speaking. The heat output alone registered on seismic sensors in the next prefecture. Beerus looked at it. He blinked once. "Beerus, is that fire coming out of your face?" "Endeavor, I'm warning you." "Beerus, it is, it's coming out of your face. You were born like that." "Endeavor, attack formation, now." What happened in the next 4 minutes entered Hero Society's historical record as the single most efficient, total, and psychologically devastating defeat in the profession's documented history. Shoto went first, ice and fire simultaneously, a technique that took years to develop, that represented the resolution of the deepest wound in his family's history, that could freeze an entire city block and superheat the air above it at the same time. A column of ice shot forward that was 40 meters wide and 10 meters thick. Beerus tilted his head slightly to the left. The ice stopped not because it was blocked, because the air pressure differential created by that single small head movement was enough to introduce a structural fault line through the entire ice column. It shattered every piece. Shoto stood in a cloud of ice dust, completely still, trying to process what had just happened. "Shoto, that's not possible." MT Lady went next, full giant form, 80 meters, the ground shaking with each step. She swung with everything she had. Beerus caught her fist with 2 fingers. He held it, not straining, not particularly focused. He was, at that moment, looking at a bird that had landed on a nearby utility pole and apparently found it more interesting than the 80-meter woman whose fist he was holding. "MT Lady, let go." "Beerus, one moment, there's a bird." He released her, she stumbled back, deformed an entire warehouse with the impact, and sat in the rubble looking at her own fist like it had betrayed her. Then the real coordinated assault started. 13 heroes at once, explosions, gravity fields, hardening, sound waves, energy beams, the full catastrophe of what Hero Society could deploy when it actually tried. Beerus flicked one finger. Not at them, not toward them, just flicked it, a small motion, the way you flick a crumb off a table. The shockwave hit the mountain range 6 kilometers to the east. 3 peaks crumbled, not dramatically, they just stopped being peaks. The rock faces slid down in long gray sheets like someone had taken an eraser to them. The sound reached the battle site 4 seconds later, a low, enormous, geological sound that nobody there would ever fully describe afterward because human language doesn't have adequate vocabulary for what mountains sound like when they die from disinterest. Total silence on the battlefield. Beerus looked at his own finger, then at the heroes, then at his finger again. Beerus, your abilities, these quirks, they are fascinating as novelties, like watching children play with fire. Beerus, cute party tricks, very regional, very provincial. That word landed harder than the shockwave had. Provincial. Not dangerous, not th. Reasoning provincial like something that exists inside a very small box and has never considered the size of the box. Endeavor, still standing, still burning, said nothing. For the first time in his career he had nothing to say, not because he'd run out of defiance, because defiance requires a believable threat of consequence, and he had just watched 3 mountains erased by a gesture of mild boredom, and somewhere in that data his body had made a decision his pride hadn't caught up to yet. Hawks descended slowly from altitude. He landed next to Endeavor, his wings folded. He looked at the crumbled horizon. Hawks, so that's where we are. Endeavor, shut up, Hawks. Hawks, yeah, that's fair. In the distance, sirens, the mountain slides had triggered geological alerts across 3 prefectures. Nobody had been hurt, the mountains were uninhabited, but the gesture of the thing was already spreading through every news feed on every screen in the country. Hero society had spent a century building a power structure. It had just been described as provincial. That word was going to cost something, they just didn't know how much yet. He had been watching through 17 separate surveillance feeds. All for One did not leave things to chance. Leaving things to chance was for people who lacked the patience to construct certainty in advance. He had been constructing certainty for the better part of a century, and he was very good at it, and watching 43 pro heroes get casually erased by a being that flicked mountains apart with one finger was not terrifying to him. It was instructive. He sat in his chair in the dark, the medical apparatus that kept his body functional humming around him, and he watched the footage from 17 angles, and he thought about the specific quality of power he was observing. It was not a quirk. He had stolen hundreds of quirks. He knew what a quirk felt like. It had a shape, a boundary, an origin point in the body. This was different. This was something that existed before the body, something the body was merely the current container for. All for One, you can steal anything if you understand its architecture. He began making arrangements. Well, the heroes had left, the debris had been photographed and cataloged, and the mountain slides were being assessed by geological teams. Beerus had not left. He was sitting on an overturned concrete block, eating something he had produced from somewhere, apparently content to observe the city from a comfortable distance while deciding what he thought of it. All for One arrived through a method that left no visible trace of arrival. He was simply there, standing 40 meters away, which was the distance he'd calculated as close enough for the attempt and far enough for the minimum viable escape window if things went wrong. Beerus noticed him immediately. He stopped eating. He looked at this new human with an expression that was slightly different from the one he'd had for the heroes, slightly more focused. Something about the specific quality of this human's energy was different, denser, more layered, the way a river is different from a puddle even if both are water. Beerus, you're not one of the fire-face ones. All for One, no, I'm something else entirely. Beerus, what do you want? All for One, what you have. Beerus set down his food very carefully. Beerus, nobody has ever said that to me before. All for One, then nobody before me understood what you are. It happened fast. All for One was not a patient man when patience was no longer strategically useful. The quirk activation was a pulling motion, the same one he'd used 10,000 times to reach into a person's cellular architecture and extract the ability living there. He extended it toward Beerus with the full force of a century of practice and every stolen quirk amplifying the reach. He touched something. He immediately wished he hadn't. What he touched was not a quirk. It was not a power in any sense he had a framework for. It was like reaching into what you thought was a pond and discovering your hand had gone through the surface of the ocean, and the ocean went down forever, and it was cold in a way that had nothing to do with temperature, and something in those depths noticed your hand and looked up. He pulled back. He had taken nothing. He had extracted nothing. But something had come back with his hand that hadn't been there before, a residue, a trace, the specific sensation of having been seen by something that found you very small and not particularly interesting. He was breathing hard. This had not happened before. He did not breathe hard. Beerus, interesting attempt. Beerus, you tried to steal from me. All for one, I tried to. Beerus from me. The repetition was not for emphasis. It was the sound of something genuinely processing a new experience. In 4 billion years, nobody had tried to steal from him. Beerus raised one hand. He did something it not a dramatic gesture, barely emotion, more like an adjustment, a small correction, the way you reset a clock. All for one felt it before he understood it. One of his stolen quirks was gone. Not suppressed, not blocked, gone like a room in a house that has ceased to exist. Not empty, absent. The space where it had lived in his cellular architecture was simply not there anymore. He ran an internal check. He had hundreds. He cataloged them in seconds. The missing one was Rivet Stab, a minor combat quirk, useful but not primary, stolen from a mid-level hero 11 years ago. Small, not devastating. That was the point. Beerus, I could have removed all of them. I removed one. Beerus, consider it a lesson in the difference between power and godhood. Power can be taken. Godhood is what takes. All for one stood very still for a long moment. The wind came off the mountain debris and moved his coat. He had spent his entire existence on one fundamental premise, that anything could be stolen if you understood its architecture. He had built an empire on that premise. He had survived a century on that premise. He had outlasted heroes and governments and the march of time itself on that premise. The premise had just been wrong. He turned and left without another word, because there were no words for this. Because some discoveries are too large to respond to in the moment and require a long time alone in the dark before you can begin to think about what they mean. Behind him, Beerus finished eating. He looked at the empty space where the mountains used to be. He looked at the city. He thought that this world was, in its way, more surprising than most. He thought that was worth staying to see more of. The meeting had been going for 2 hours, and nobody had said anything useful yet. This was, in Nezu's estimation, the natural consequence of asking people who had spent their careers solving problems with force to solve a problem that force had already failed on. They kept circling back to the same territory, new formations, new combinations, new deployment strategies, as if the issue was tactical rather than categorical. Nezu let them circle. He sat in his chair with his tea going cold, and he thought about the specific shape of the problem and what it actually required. The problem was this: Beerus was still here. He had not destroyed anything that wasn't already crumbling. He had not issued demands. He had not threatened the civilian population. He had, by every observable metric, settled into a state of mild tourism, moving through the outskirts of the city, examining things that caught his interest, occasionally eating foods that no vendor had any record of selling to him. He was bored. That was the real problem. An entity of this magnitude operating in their world out of boredom was more dangerous than one operating out of malice, because malice had a logic you could work with. Boredom had only one cure. Nezu raised one small paw. Nezu, gentlemen, a different proposal. They all looked at him. Nezu, we cannot defeat him. We have established this thoroughly. We cannot contain him. We cannot negotiate a departure because he has not indicated any destination he intends to reach, but we can possibly engage him. AIZAWA, engage him how? Nezu on his terms, which from everything I've observed means give him something interesting to watch. Nezu approached Beerus personally. He walked out to where the god of destruction was sitting on the school's outer wall, looking at the city, and he sat down nearby and waited until Beerus acknowledged him, which took approximately 4 minutes. Beerus, the small white one. Nezu, Principal Nezu, UA High School. Beerus, you run the institution that trains the party trick children. Nezu, I do, and I have a proposal that I believe you'll find more entertaining than watching the city. Nezu, observe my students, not the professionals, they've already demonstrated their ceiling. The students, children who are still becoming whatever they're going to be, evaluate them by your own standard. If they interest you, we learn something. If they don't, Nezu, then we've lost nothing we didn't already know we'd lost. Beerus looked at him for a long time. Beerus, and if I find them wanting? Nezu, that is a risk I am prepared to accept. Another silence, then Beerus made a sound that might have been a laugh if it had been slightly warmer. Beerus, fine, show me your children. The god of destruction would be observing their training. Their performance would be evaluated by his standard. What happened to those who failed his standard was not specified. Nezu had been deliberately vague on that point, which everyone interpreted correctly as meaning the answer was bad, and saying it out loud would not help. The atmosphere in the locker room before the first session was the specific kind of quiet that happens when 20 teenagers are all thinking the same enormous thought. HT, and none of them have figured out how to say it yet. Uraraka broke it. Uraraka. Okay, so basically if we mess up today, we might get obliterated. IIDA, we do not know that for certain. Uraraka, Ida, the mountains. IIDA, the mountains, yes. TODOROKI, train like it's a normal session. Don't perform. If you perform for him, you'll perform badly and he'll know. MIDORIYA, he's right. Beerus has seen thousands of worlds. He knows the difference between what someone actually is and what they're trying to show him. Bakugo said nothing. He was already suited up, already at the door, already done with the conversation. Bakugo, stop being afraid of dying and start being afraid of being boring. Those are your priorities in the right order. Let's go. He left. After a moment, everyone followed. He was, as usual, correct. Beerus watched from an elevated platform Nezu had constructed overnight, a simple structure, nothing fancy, just enough elevation that he could observe the whole ground simultaneously. He sat with his legs crossed and his tail moving slowly and his expression doing the thing it did when he was paying attention, which was almost identical to the expression it did when he wasn't paying attention, except for something barely visible in the quality of the eye focus. He watched Midoriya run the first drill and fail it, then run it again and fail it differently. Then run it a third time and push through the failure into something that wasn't quite success but was clearly the direction of success, and the look on Midoriya's face when it partially worked, not triumph, just recalibration, just the immediate pivot to what comes next that made Beerus's tail stop moving for 3 seconds. He watched Todoroki working the boundary between his two powers, the specific and ongoing negotiation between fire and ice that was visibly also a negotiation with his own history. He watched Ida pushing his engine past a governor he'd set himself, the physical expression of someone choosing to trust themselves more than they did yesterday. And then he watched Bakugo. Bakugo was doing something that none of the others were doing. He wasn't training toward a standard. He was training toward an edge he couldn't fully see yet, pushing past every boundary he could find specifically to discover where the next one was, treating every ceiling as a floor, operating in a state of deliberate and controlled fury that was actually, Beerus realized, not fury at all. It was hunger, pure, architectural hunger for the version of himself that didn't exist yet. Beerus leaned forward slightly. Nezu, watching from a distance, saw this and wrote 3 words in his notebook. We bought time. At the end of the session, Beerus stood. He looked at the assembled Class 1A below him. He spoke with no particular volume and they heard him perfectly anyway. Beerus, acceptable, most of you. You treat your limitations as temporary. That is the correct relationship with limitation. Beerus, return tomorrow. He left the platform. Nobody cheered, that wasn't what this was. But 20 teenagers stood in the training ground and breathed, and the specific quality of the air had changed, not safer, but charged with something. The recognition that they had been seen by something ancient and vast and had not been found wanting. For heroes still learning what they are, that meant something. All Might had been watching everything from his apartment. He had good sources, Gordon, old colleagues in the Hero Public Safety Commission who still called him. Hawks, who sent voice messages that were never less than 3 minutes long and never less than 70% accurate. And the news, which was covering the situation with the specific mixture of terrified breathlessness and false confidence that the news always used when the situation was beyond its capacity to categorize. He had not gone to the school. He had decided this carefully after long consideration. He was powerless. His presence would be symbolic at best and a liability at worst. Beerus might target him specifically as the former symbol of peace, might use him as a demonstration, and the last thing his students needed was to watch their mentor become a lesson in the cost of symbols. So he stayed home, he watched. He worried with the deep, practiced, permanent worry of a man who has spent his entire adult life being the person everyone else was waiting for, and now has to watch someone else be that person, while he holds coffee that's gone cold. His phone rang at 9 p.m. It was Beerus. He stared at the number unknown, but the contact name that had appeared was simply God, which was Nezu's doing and Nezu's sense of humor, and he answered because not answering would have been its own kind of cowardice. Beerus, symbol of peace. All Might, that's not my title anymore. Beerus, you built a society on the idea that one visible, strong thing could give everyone else the courage to serve. I've correct. All Might, that's a simplification, but essentially yes. Beerus, I want to meet you. Come to the school tonight. It wasn't a question. They met in the same training ground where Midoriya had first spoken to Beerus. All Might arrived with a cane he was pretending he didn't need, wearing civilian clothes, looking like the person he was now rather than the person the world remembered. Beerus was already there. He looked at All Might for a long time before speaking, the same assessment he gave everything, nothing personal, just the cataloging of a thing before deciding what category it belonged to. Beerus, you're smaller than I expected. All Might, I get that a lot lately. Beerus, the boy Midoriya, he talks about you the way people talk about gods, not with fear, with something more complicated. All Might, he shouldn't, I'm not. Beerus, I know what you are, I want to know what you built. A pause. All Might lowered himself onto a section of training wall with the careful movements of someone who has learned the precise location of every ache in his body. All Might, I built the idea that safety was possible, that if people could see someone strong enough, present enough, certain enough, they wouldn't have to be afraid, that the fear that accumulates in people who live in dangerous worlds could be, not eliminated, but held at bay, given somewhere to go. Beerus, and when that symbol is removed. The question arrived like something falling from a great height. All Might, people lose the courage that was borrowed from it. Beerus, their courage was never theirs. All Might, no, that's the flaw. I understood the flaw, All Might, I always knew the model was unsustainable. A society that depends on one person for its sense of safety is a society that has outsourced its courage. I knew that, but I didn't know how to fix it from the inside while I was the inside. And by the time I understood the full cost of the design, I had already spent myself, and the design was all there was. Beerus was quiet. He looked at this thin, diminished man who had once been the most powerful being on this planet, and was now a man with a cane and cold coffee, and a kid he was watching carry a legacy that was always too heavy. Beerus, you pass the power on. All Might, I pass the power on. Beerus, to a boy who refuses to let anyone else carry what he's carrying. All Might, yes. Beerus, you understand what you passed to him. It wasn't a question. All Might looked at the training ground, the churned dirt, the scarred targets, the evidence of 10,000 hours of work. All Might, I passed him a torch that was already burning my hands. Beerus, and the flaw in the design. Long silence. The city hummed beyond the walls. Somewhere in the school, a light was still on. All Might, he's not trying to be the symbol I was. He's trying to be something different. Something that doesn't require everyone else to borrow from it. I think he's trying to build courage that people own themselves. All Might, I don't know if it's possible, but he won't stop trying to find out. Beerus looked at the light in the school window. He said nothing for a long time. When he spoke, his voice had a quality it hadn't had in the conversation before, something beneath the flatness, something with more texture. Beerus, your society will have to decide whether strength is a loan or a gift. That question doesn't have a clean answer, but the fact that your successor is asking it. Beerus is perhaps the most interesting thing about this world. He stood, he looked at All Might one more time. Beerus, your model was flawed, but the intent behind it was not. There is a difference. Few beings understand that difference. He left. All Might sat in the training ground alone for a while. He looked at the sky. He thought about a boy on the other side of the campus who was probably still awake, probably still training, probably still carrying something that was too heavy and refusing to put it down. He thought, I should have told him more often that the weight itself was not the point, that the point was what you become by choosing to carry it. He made a note to tell him. Not tomorrow, tonight. Bakugo had been there since 4 a.m. He'd done this every day this week, which was not unusual. He was always the first one training, the last one to stop, the one who treated rest as a tactical decision rather than a biological necessity. But this week the training had a different quality. He was not refining, he was testing, probing the actual outer boundary of what he was currently capable of, the way you press on a bruise to find its exact edges. He knew Beerus was watching. Not right now, the god of destruction typically arrived mid-morning, after what appeared to be a lengthy sleep in a location nobody had been able to identify, but he'd been watching the sessions, and watching meant evaluating, and evaluation had a standard, and Bakugo needed to know, with the specific and total certainty that was the only kind of certainty he was capable of accepting, exactly where he stood against that standard. He ran the drill until his arms were shaking. He ran it again. The session had been running for 3 hours when Beerus arrived. He took his usual position on the elevated platform. He observed with his usual quality of focused neutrality. For 40 minutes he watched Midoriya's controlled power exercises. He watched Todoroki's integration work. He watched the class move through their training with the collective energy of people who understood, at some level, that they were being evaluated by a standard that had no ceiling they could reach. Then Class 1A broke for water. Bakugo did not break for water. He walked to the center of the training ground. He looked up at Beerus on the platform. Bakugo, hey. The class went very still, the kind of still that happens when you recognize that something irreversible is beginning. Beerus. Bakugo, you've been watching us for 5 days. Beerus, yes. Bakugo, evaluating. Beerus, yes. Bakugo, by what standard? Beerus looked at him. Something in his expression shifted, not alert, but attentive, differently attentive, the way you are when something stops being ambient and becomes specific. Beerus, my own. Bakugo, then come down here and tell me directly where I land on it. Nobody breathed. Uraraka grabbed Midoriya's arm. Midoriya had gone very still in the way he went still when he was processing something fast, and the processing was not producing good results. IIDA, Bakugo, you need to. Bakugo, I'm not talking to you, Ida. Bakugo, I'm not asking you to fight me. I'm asking you to look at me directly instead of from up there, because I'm done being observed from a distance by something that won't tell me what it actually sees. A long silence. Then Beerus stepped off the platform. He didn't jump, he didn't descend. He stepped, and the physics of the situation adjusted to accommodate the step, and he was on the ground and walking toward Bakugo, and every person in Class 1A took one involuntary step backward except Bakugo, who didn't move at all. They stood 10 feet apart. Beerus looked at Bakugo for a long time with that absolute focused attention. Beerus, you're the one who trains before the others arrive. Bakugo, yes. Beerus, and after they leave. Bakugo, yes. Beerus, why? Bakugo, because the version of me that exists right now isn't good enough, and the version of me that needs to exist doesn't yet, and the distance between those two versions doesn't close by itself. Beerus said nothing. Bakugo, so your standard, where do I land? Another silence, then slowly Beerus smiled. Not the mild expression of mild amusement he'd shown at the mountains, not the polite interest he'd shown the class. A real smile, the kind that involves actual feeling, that comes from somewhere old and genuine, that has nothing polite or managed about it. It was the first real smile anyone on this planet had seen from him. It was, in its way, terrifying. Beerus, you have the hunger. Bakugo, the hunger. Beerus, the specific hunger that does not know the word enough. That treats every version of itself as a preliminary draft. That finds every ceiling and immediately begins looking for the floor of the next level. Beerus, I have seen it before, in entities that became significant. Bakugo, significant how? Beerus, in my experience, the hunger you carry either destroys you or produces something that changes the shape of what is possible. There is rarely a middle outcome. Bakugo, which one am I? Beerus, I don't know yet, that is why I keep watching. A pause, Bakugo's jaw was set. His eyes were burning, not with anger, with the specific fire of someone receiving something they've been reaching for and refusing to show how much it costs them to take it in. Beerus, the hunger properly directed, is the only quality that produces true destroyers. Beerus, or true heroes, the mechanism is identical, only the direction differs. He turned and walked back toward the platform. Then stopped. Didn't turn around, just stopped. Beerus, there's a word in my language for what you are. It translates approximately as a candidate for consequence. An entity whose future has not yet decided which direction it will fall, but will unquestionably fall hard in one direction or the other. Beerus, pay attention to which direction you choose. He stepped back onto the platform. The class remained still for a long moment. Then Midoriya walked up behind Bakugo, not saying anything, just standing next to him, which was itself a language they had been speaking their whole lives. Bakugo looked straight ahead at the platform. Bakugo, you heard that. Midoriya, yes. Bakugo, what he said about the direction. Midoriya, yes. Bakugo, I've already decided. Midoriya, I know. Bakugo, I decided a long time ago, when you were lying on the ground and too stupid to stay there, and I realized the only person who was going to keep up with you was me. A beat, Midoriya opened his mouth and closed it again. Bakugo, don't make it weird. Midoriya, I'm not making it weird. Bakugo, your face is making it weird. Midoriya, I can't control my face. From the platform, Beerus watched the two boys argue about the face. His tail moved in a slow, satisfied arc. This world, these ridiculous, impossible, painfully temporary creatures. He thought about leaving. He thought about the dimensional fold that had brought him here by accident, the resonance he'd been tracking, the fact that he had other things to do and other worlds to assess, and a very comfortable bed waiting in a dimension that didn't have quite so much arguing in it. He thought about Bakugo's hunger and Midoriya's conviction, and All Might's broken model and the boy sitting in the dirt with a notebook who had made a case to a god. He stayed. He would stay a little longer. He wanted to see which direction the hunger fell. The conversation has moved from introduction to information to something harder to categorize. Midoriya has his notebook out. This is both his most useful habit and his most human one, the impulse to record, to make a record of a thing as a way of making it real, manageable, known. Beerus has been watching the notebook with an expression Midoriya cannot read, and has been trying to read for an hour. Beerus, you take notes on everything. Midoriya, it helps me think. Beerus, I have encountered scholars who did this, on worlds I later destroyed. He says this without malice, the way you mention weather. Midoriya's hand stops moving across the page. Midoriya, how many? Beerus worlds I stopped counting. It is not a useful number to track. Midoriya, why? Beerus looks at him. Beerus, because destruction is balance, not punishment. When a world has grown in a direction that is incompatible with the continued functioning of the universe, it is removed. This is not cruel, it is maintenance. Midoriya, the people on those worlds. Beerus are part of the world. Silence. Midoriya writes something in the notebook. He underlines it twice. Midoriya, slowly, is this world in that category? Long pause. Beerus, I have not decided. The words land like stones in still water. Midoriya does not flinch. He puts his pen down carefully. He looks at Beerus directly. Midoriya, then I would like to make a case. Beerus, genuinely curious, a case. Midoriya, for why this world should continue. Beerus stares at him. In 4 billion years, across thousands of worlds, the responses to his presence have followed recognizable patterns: fear, aggression, worship, despair, flight. Not this. Not a notebook and a prepared argument and eyes that are frightened and steady at the same time. Beerus, after a very long moment, proceed. Midoriya talks for 40 minutes. He talks about One for All and what it means not as a power, but as a relay, a torch passed from person to person through generations of people who chose to give rather than keep. He talks about All Might and what the symbol of peace meant not as a lie, but as a promise that the strong would choose to protect. He talks about his classmates, each one by name, each one with a specific story, not of their power but of their wound and what they did with it. He talks about what it feels like to be born without a quirk in a world that treats that as a fundamental deficiency. He talks about what All Might looked like in the rain on a rooftop when Midoriya was a small child, and what he said, and what it did to a boy who had been told his entire life that some doors simply do not open for certain kinds of people. He talks about heroism not as a profession, but as a choice made fresh every day by people who know the cost and pay it anyway. He is not performing, he is not strategic. He is simply telling the truth as completely as he knows how to tell it, because this is what he has, not power that can match what sits across from him, but the truth of what this world is, offered fully, without apology. When he finishes, he is quiet. The morning has become afternoon. The shadows have shifted. Beerus has not moved. He has not spoken. He has been watching Midoriya with the specific quality of attention he gives to things he finds genuinely difficult to place in a category he already has. Beerus, after a very long silence, you know this changes nothing. Midoriya, I know. Beerus, if I decide this world should end, your argument will not stop me. Midoriya, I know that too. Beerus, then why? Midoriya, quietly, simply, because the people I'm talking about deserve to be spoken for, whether it changes anything or not. Something crosses Beerus's face. It is brief and complicated, and he does not comment on it. All Might arrives at the school at 5:47 p.m. He arrives in a car, not under his own power, because he no longer has his own power. He moves carefully on a bad leg. He looks older than his years in the way that people who have given a great deal of themselves look older than their years. He is briefed in 30 seconds. He asks one question. All Might, is young Midoriya safe? Nezu, for the moment. He's been in conversation with the entity for 8 hours. All Might is quiet for a long moment, then he moves toward the window. He stands there looking out at the training grounds, at the small figure of Midoriya sitting across from something ancient and vast, notebooks spread on the ground between them like evidence submitted to a cosmic court. He does not speak for a long time. When he does, his voice is steady in the specific way that steadiness is a choice. All Might, he's making the case, isn't he, for all of us? Nezu, quietly, yes. All Might puts one hand against the window glass. He is not crying. He is past the point where crying is the right response. He is somewhere quieter than that and harder to reach and more permanent. All Might, he was supposed to inherit a power. I never thought I was also passing this on. This particular weight. This standing in front of things that cannot be moved and saying something anyway. He takes his hand off the glass. All Might very quietly, I'm sorry, my boy. Outside, Midoriya is still talking. The lights on the training ground have come on automatically as the sky darkened. Midoriya and Beerus are still there. The rest of Class 1A has been watching from the windows in shifts. No one has gone to sleep. The conversation has changed again. They are no longer in the territory of argument and plea. They are somewhere stranger and more intimate, two beings sitting in the dark talking about the specific nature of responsibility to things that cannot protect themselves. Beerus, you carry something that was given to you by others, something you did not choose. Midoriya, yes. Beerus, and it breaks you, repeatedly, the strain of using it. Midoriya, yes. Beerus, and you continue. Midoriya, yes. A long silence. Beerus, I'm also carrying something I did not choose. Midoriya looks up. Beerus, the function of destruction, the maintenance of balance. I did not apply for this role, it was determined by what I am. I have been what I am for 4 billion years, and I have never been asked to explain it to anyone before. Silent. Midoriya, carefully, does it feel like a burden? Beerus, long beat, it feels like nothing. It has felt like nothing for so long that I had forgotten feeling like nothing was itself a feeling. He looks at Midoriya. Beerus, until today. Midoriya does not move. He understands with the instinct that has always been his truest gift, not power, but the ability to see into the specific nature of a person's wound, that what Beerus is describing is a kind of loneliness so vast and ancient that it has ceased to register. As loneliness, the way chronic pain eventually becomes the baseline, and you forget what it felt like before. He does not say this, he just stays present with it. This is also something he was taught. It comes at 2:13 a.m. when the city has gone quiet and the training ground lights are casting long shadows and Midoriya's voice has gone rough from hours of use. Bakugo has been at the window for 6 hours. He has not moved, he has not slept. He has been watching with the specific attention of someone who has spent his entire life watching Midoriya be reckless and brilliant and impossible, and has never found a way to say that he has always, underneath everything, been more afraid for him than angry at him. He watches Beerus stand. He watches Beerus look at the city, at the lights, at the world that does not know what has been happening in this courtyard for 16 hours. He watches Beerus look at Midoriya. Beerus quietly, almost to himself, this world is noisy, inefficient, painfully temporary. Midoriya says nothing, he waits. Beerus, the energy signature I tracked here, it was not what I expected. It brought me somewhere I did not intend to go. It showed me something I did not intend to see. He looks at Midoriya directly. Beerus, you are the most ridiculous creature I have encountered in 4 billion years. A beat. Midoriya very quietly, is that good? Beerus, after a long pause, I am undecided. He lifts off the ground slowly. The purple energy gathers around him. The wind comes off it in all directions, not violent, controlled. The wind of something choosing to leave rather than something being driven away. Beerus, your world will continue. 3 words, flat, matter of fact, the way you might say, it will rain tomorrow. Midoriya closes his eyes for 1 second, just one, then opens them again. Beerus, not because of your argument. Midoriya waits. Beerus, because of the fact that you made it, knowing what I was, knowing what I could do, knowing it might mean nothing. He pauses. Beerus, I have not seen that before. I wanted to continue seeing it. He rises, the sky above him bends. The horizon shifts that unnamed color again. He does not look back. He is simply gone. The sky returns. The training ground is quiet. Midoriya sits on the ground for a long time, not because he is hurt, because his body has decided with complete reasonableness that it is done standing for the moment. He is shaking not from fear now, from release, the specific physical aftermath of holding yourself together for 16 hours by will alone. He does not cry, he just shakes and breathes. Bakugo is there before anyone else. He does not run, running would imply he was worried, and he is not going to admit that, but he moves fast, and he is the first one through the door, and he crosses the courtyard in about 6 steps and crouches down in front of Midoriya without saying anything. Midoriya looks up at him. Midoriya voice wrecked, hey. Bakugo, looking at him with an expression that is doing everything it can to be neutral and is failing completely. You're an idiot. Midoriya, I know. Bakugo, you sat out here for 16 hours. Midoriya, I know. Bakugo, talking. Midoriya, I know. Bakugo, voice dropping, did you think it would work? A long pause. Midoriya, no, not really, I thought. If someone was going to speak for this world, it should be someone who actually believes in it. And I really believe in it. Bakugo stares at him, his jaw works. He is doing the thing he does when he is feeling something that he does not have a framework for expressing, not because he lacks language, but because the feeling is too large for the container he has built for himself. He reaches out and grabs Midoriya's wrist. He pulls him to his feet. He does not let go immediately. Bakugo, quietly not looking at him, you don't get to do this alone. Midoriya, confused, Kakin. Bakugo, next time something like this shows up, and something like this will show up again, because it's you and this is your life, you don't get to be the only one standing there. You got it. Silent. Then from behind them, the sound of the rest of Class 1A arriving in the courtyard, still in various states of sleeplessness and dishevelment, all of them having apparently made the same decision at the same moment. Todoroki, Uraraka, Iida, all of them. And at the back, moving slowly, All Might. All Might, who is powerless and gray-haired, and using the weight of walls to walk, who built a legacy that a boy inherited and nearly broke himself carrying tonight. Midoriya sees him, his face does something complicated. All Might walks across the training ground to where Midoriya is standing. He puts a hand on Midoriya's shoulder. He does not say anything grandiose. He does not say anything inspirational. All Might quietly just to him, well done. 2 words. Midoriya holds it together for about 4 more seconds. Then he doesn't. All Might steadies him. Behind them, Bakugo turns away and looks at the sky, jaw set, eyes very bright, not crying, absolutely not crying. The city continues, the lights are on. The world, the noisy and inefficient and painfully temporary world, continues. It was allowed to. Midoriya is in the training grounds again, same time, same drills, the notebook is open to a new page. He fails the drill, he stops, he makes a note, he starts again. He passes it on the 3rd attempt. He does not celebrate, he makes another note, he moves to the next drill. In the cave of his mind, where the previous holders of One for All sometimes speak to him, there is a quality of stillness he has not felt before, not absence, presence, the specific quality of presence that a thing has when it has been witnessed, when someone has looked at it fully and chosen not to look away. He has thought about what Beerus said every day since. Not the decision, the reasoning. Not because your argument was good enough, because you made it. He turns this over in the early morning quiet the way you turn over something you are still learning the shape of. He does not fully understand it yet. He suspects he will spend a long time understanding it. He suspects that is appropriate. The sky above UA is very blue. He runs the next drill. Beerus is asleep. He sleeps a great deal. This is known, this is documented, this is one of the things that makes him bearable to the universe that hosts him. But tonight, or what passes for tonight in the space between dimensions, he is not asleep. He is lying on his back with his eyes open, looking at something that is not visible to anyone else, turning something over in the portion of his mind that is not occupied with hunger and boredom and the vast administrative weight of his function. He is thinking about a boy on a training ground with a notebook and honest eyes who sat across from the end of everything he loved and said, "Let me make the case." He is thinking about what it felt like to be asked, for the first time in 4 billion years, to explain himself. He has not answered the question yet, not fully, not to himself. He suspects it will take some time. He has time. He thinks not quite for the first time that he might visit again. Not to destroy, simply to see what the ridiculous creature does next.